By the time a student finishes high school, they will have spent 17,000 hours at school. At the time this photo was taken, I had just finished third-year university, and I had approximately 21,000 hours of education under my belt. I was 21 years old, I had been studying theater and African studies, and I was about to embark on a 3-month internship to Kenya. I would travel with one other student from Toronto to Nairobi up to a small village near Lake Victoria, where we would teach for a term at Wikondiak Primary and Secondary School, a very small local school run by the government. I thought I was ready. I had been studying politics and development and Swahili. I had versed myself in the Kenyan education system. I had done my homework to make sure that I had dispelled any negative stereotypes I might have about Kenya. I had read nothing but books by Kenyan authors in the months leading up to my internship. I had an open mind and a grade point average that suggested I knew a thing or two about Africa. So I was ready. I was ready to just seamlessly integrate myself into the world of teaching in full-on cultural immersion. Well, as it turns out, the transition was not that seamless. And that's because that's the power of experiential education, or learning through experience. It takes you very far out of your comfort zone and then has the ability to crack your mind, heart, and world open in the most unimaginable and beautiful ways. In the months leading up to my internship, I had lived only my whole life in Canada, so I really didn't have a lot of international travel experience, so even navigating the airports alone by myself for the first time was a brand new experience. But that first month I spent in the village, I was doing things I never could have imagined myself doing. I was having conversations in broken Swahili because the people there didn't speak English. I was learning how to navigate the new public transportation system. The way that it works is those brightly colored buses, they don't run on a schedule. They leave when they're full, and it's not uncommon to find yourself going down a bumpy road, squished between a grandma, a huge bag of groceries, someone else's baby on your lap, and a live chicken under the seat. I learned the hard way not to make friends with the local livestock, and that is because at the next big community celebration, you might just find that that cute little goat you made friends with is the celebratory meal. Now, on top of the day-to-day cultural experiences that I was having, I was also learning what a complex and complicated place Kenya is. You see, in my university classes, I had been learning about the economic disparity that existed there. But that took on a whole new meaning to me when I was teaching in a classroom that had students who would show up to school day after day after day without school supplies. Day after day after day without school supplies. And it was also very difficult because I was teaching a class that had broken desks and no chalk. The students, they would actually stay at school late into the evenings, huddled around their desks doing their homework because the school had lights, but their homes did not. In my university classes, I had been learning about gender inequality, but that looked a lot different when I was teaching a class that had 24 boys and only 3 girls. I was shocked when I found out that my vibrant 15-year-old neighbor was previously a student at the school, but she had dropped out the year before to get married. In North America, they teach us a lot about water scarcity and how much and how finite the freshwater resources available for human consumption is. But I come from a place that's surrounded by the 5 of the freshest water lakes in the world, and so that didn't really mean anything to me until I was in this community, and I saw community members walking multiple kilometers carrying 2 25-kilogram jerry cans full of fresh water to their homes, because that was the shortest distance that they could travel in order to have any fresh water in their houses. Suddenly, all of these things that I had been learning about became so much more real to me. Now, I don't for a second want you to think that these harsh realities were the only things that I saw that summer, because they absolutely were not. Kenya is a country that is so much more than the negative stereotypical images of poverty that are often the only images that make their way to Western media. When I was in the village, I saw some incredible female entrepreneurial initiatives. My students taught themselves how to make solar panel chargers so they could charge their smartphones. I had the opportunity to visit Nairobi, and Nairobi continues to be one of the most vibrant and eclectic and inspiring cities that I've ever visited. Kenya is a country that has amazing technology hubs, luxury shopping centers, beautiful beaches, green parks. There's a United Nations headquarters in Nairobi. Kenya has produced people like Wangari Maathai, an environmental activist who was the first African woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize. Eliud Kipchoge is the only man to ever run a marathon in less than 2 hours, and he to this day continues to break his record year after year after year. Kenya is a country that is filled with artists, activists, and ingenuity. It's a country that banned the use of plastic bags far before any Western nation. There is an infinite number of positive things that I could say about Kenya. And yet, those harsh realities do still exist. And it was this juxtaposition that really made me question everything it was that I was learning at university. It made me think critically about the effectiveness of NGOs and what the actual implications of having so many foreign aid workers in a country is. It made me draw comparisons to issues in my own country of Canada and made me reflect on what I was doing and if I could be doing more to act locally instead of globally. There is one particular day that will stay with me for the rest of my life. I had woken up in the village in the morning, I walked to school, I taught a math lesson to a grade 4 class, and then we took most of the primary students to another local primary school to attend a track and field meet. In between the events, I was sitting with some 6th grade girls, and they shared with me some very personal stories about some of the tremendous losses that they had suffered simply because of the situations that they had been born into. As I was reflecting on what it was that they were telling me and thinking about everything that I had learned, it became abundantly clear to me that I had learned more in 3 months of cultural immersion than I had in 3 years of African studies at university. Now, don't get me wrong, those 21,000 hours of education I had behind me were essential. They provided me with crucial background information. But what I learned that day was that even 1 hour spent doing something meaningful outside of school has the power to change your whole life. I considered that I could study teaching, but I never actually learned how to be a teacher until I was one-on-one working with students in the classroom. I could study another culture or politics or development, but none of that had any real meaning to me until I was practically experiencing it in the world. I had to step away from my textbooks and out of my comfort zone in order to truly understand anything it was that I was learning. Now, going to school is extremely important. My classes, teachers, professors, essays, and exams, they all set me up for success with knowledge and skills in order to be successful in the world. But I had to take what I was learning in the classroom and put it into a real-world context in order for me to truly build any sort of meaningful connection with what I was learning. This was when I learned the true power of experiential education. And it truly is powerful. So powerful, in fact, that I had a full-blown identity crisis when I went back to Canada. You see, because before my internship, I knew I wanted to be an actor. And then I came back and I was like, oh no, I know I still love drama, but also I found myself wanting to pursue education and youth leadership, and most of all, I wanted to keep learning. So that's what I did. I graduated from university and I actually moved back to Kenya for a few years, where I worked as an experiential educator, doing leadership workshops with young people. I also had the opportunity to collaborate with artists and activists to create some very powerful art with global perspectives. I felt so grateful because I had found a way to blend my love of the arts and activism and working with young people. And these were things that I had always been passionate about deep inside me, but they were amplified and magnified so much by that internship I had done the year before. More recently, I have pursued a degree in education, and I work as a teacher, where I hope to be able to bridge the gap between the classroom and the real world. It's also a big goal of mine to be able to bridge the gap between knowing that real-world issues exist and helping students figure out ways to take meaningful action towards those issues. If I hadn't taken ownership over my education and done that internship in third-year university, I would not be here teaching in Albania today. My life would be completely different. One thing I've learned is that experiential education is contagious. Anytime I take students on a field trip, the first question I always get when we get back is, "Can we do that again?" Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to take some students on a hike. And it just so happened to pour rain that day. So the students basically had to just slide down the mountain. Now, this day was pretty hectic, but I saw students overcome fear that day. I saw students make new friends that day. There was also bloodshed that day. There was tears. There was the most dramatic complaining I have ever heard in my career as a teacher. And yet, by the time we made it back on the bus to school, I had more than one student ask me, "Hey, Miss Brianna, next time can we go to Theth, which has some of the highest and hardest hiking trails in Albania?" That is what experiential education does. It shows students what they're capable of and leaves them craving more. Experiential education builds lifelong learners. I once worked with a student who knew for his whole life he was going to be a cosmetic surgeon and make so much money. Fair enough. We took a field trip to a local clinic, and this student had an opportunity to talk with the doctors and patients there about some specific issues surrounding the area of maternal health. After the field trip, I was in conversation with this student, and he discussed a little bit about how he still wanted to pursue medicine, but maybe he wanted to have a bit of a stronger focus on community medicine. I am very happy to report that that student graduated from high school, was accepted to medical school, and he's currently working as a doctor in underserved communities. The US Travel Association conducted a study that found that regardless of ethnicity, gender, or socioeconomic class, students that go on field trips earn higher grades, have a higher graduation rate from high school and university, and they ultimately go on to earn more money in their careers. The study also found that students who go on field trips have higher rates of empathy and tolerance towards new ideas and differentiating opinions. The knowledge retention rate from traditional learning can be as low as 5%, whereas the knowledge retention rate from experiential learning can be as high as 90%. Now, it's a known fact that today's students need to develop 21st century skills in order to be successful in their future careers. Going to school is extremely important. They need to attend classes and lectures, and they need to learn in the classroom. But we also need to find ways to teach our students these crucial skills in order for them to reach the highest level of success. And I can think of no better way for students to earn this success than through experiential learning. Students can learn critical thinking skills through going out into their communities, gathering data, and analyzing it. They can learn communication skills when we take them into communities where people don't speak their native tongues. They can learn to collaborate through extracurricular activities, leadership clubs, and camp. They can learn creativity through spending time with local artists and musicians and painters and dancers. There are an infinite number of ways for students to learn these essential skills through experiential learning. My advice for students and adults is to find what you're passionate about and go explore it off campus or out of the workplace. If you're curious about something, go out and experience it. Ask your questions. Get some answers. If you feel like you're being torn in more than one direction or you have to make a choice and you're not sure which way to go, see if you can explore both options and then make your decision. The 17,000 hours that you spend at school will shape what you know. But the hours you spend out there exploring the world will shape who you become.